It's Mr. Archey. I've got another story for you. I hope you're all surviving this shutdown well. Again, make sure you're helping out at home. Today, I'm going to read a story. It's called The Keeping Quilt. That's the title. It is by Patricia Polacco. Here's the cover. This story, I felt this is a good choice for this time. Because of everything that's going on, I wanted to pick a story that kind of was family oriented and just showed how important it is at a time like this that we all kind of band together and help each other out. So this is a story about family, tradition, and a lot of other things. So hopefully you enjoy. Once again, it is called The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. When my great-grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of her family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like back home in Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. And here we see. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into a shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them too. The only things she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka she liked to throw up in the air when she was dancing. See her dancing with her babushka over here. I bet some of you at home have some very important items that you like to use all the time too. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. Then, from a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havela's dress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. "We will make a quilt to help us always remember home," Anna's mother said. "It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us all night." And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as she needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. Now I'm hoping all of you out there are using the context clues to figure out what a babushka is. I think that you've probably figured it out by now. But if you haven't, see if you can figure it out. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that had started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup. The quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great-grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky. They were engaged. And here we see our two lovebirds. Don't they look so sweet together? Under the wedding huppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. Interesting aspect of their culture that the men and the women celebrate separately. When my grandpa Carl was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carl was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so she would never know poverty. A flower, so she would always know love. Salt, so her life would always have flavor. And bread, so that she would never know hunger. Carl learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anne told Carl. And again, the quilt became a wedding chuppah, this time for Carl's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, and they still did not dance together. In Carl's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carl and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and great-grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Now, I'm not sure how many of you out there are paying very close attention, but you'll notice that this celebration, it said the men and women did celebrate together at first, but they still didn't dance together. I wonder why it's changing. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a Coolidge, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. I apologize if there's any Russian students out there if I'm pronouncing any of these words incorrectly. I am very sorry. I don't have a lot of familiarity with Russian culture. When great-grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her chuppah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. So again, it looks like they're starting some of the new land cultures now that they're in America. But if you'll notice, they're still making sure that they keep their culture alive. That's very important. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world. And it was the tablecloth for my first birthday party. There we see the quilt. And once again, there it is, has the tablecloth for the birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. I have to say, over the years, this quilt has had quite the different uses, if you will. Didn't realize a quilt could be used for so many different things. At my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. Get a little closer for you. 20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday she too will leave home and she will take the quilt with her. So, once again, that was the Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. Some great themes in this story. It's interesting how they did kind of assimilate or become like the culture that they moved to. But it was very important that they kept their Russian and Jewish culture alive. So don't forget, you want to keep your culture alive. It's important to you and your family's heritage. On that note, that is our read aloud for the day. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay healthy and stay smart.